But I think the real difference was pace. And it was that sense in government, if government makes a decision and it's wrong, it can have massive consequences. And so everything is about making sure that you make the right decision, and that can take time. Whereas in the private sector, as you know, you make a decision, you make it quickly. If it's the wrong decision, you change course, you learn your lessons, you move on. So that was a real difference, I think. I think the proudest thing for me was commercialising what was a government service, really. So we left government with having been funded with £3 million per annum when we were in government to deliver that service. And overnight we had no government funding and very little commercial income. We were actually raising a little bit of commercial income in government, but only a few £100,000. And by the time I left, we had a turnover of around about 14 million. So the commercialisation of that service is something that I'm very proud of, but I'm more proud of the way that we did it. And again, that comes down to the people and really stepping up and wanting to learn and adapt to their new environment and wanting to make a difference and continuing to hold true to that ethos of doing it by adding value to customers rather than by, you can do that. Yeah. And councils don't really want it. I mean, certainly post-COVID with hybrid working, they're not in the office all the time. And actually, it's just...
I think it's got to be one of the only sort of major things that people do. Most people either know someone or will submit some sort of planning application. And I think it's one of the only services that probably, it's just fully digitized and just happens now, more so than anything else I could probably think of. So just unheard of. I mean, it is a true example of digital transformation. That word gets pushed around all of the time, but to have a central source, a central part, and a central area where it's all dealt with and it's all known, and the fact, like you say, that people just go that way now and have been for so long, the fact that it's a digital transformation project that worked and it's actually beneficial for other people. I guess with that.
So we made what was quite a bold decision at the time. And we said to councils, right, we are changing this as of this date. We're going to support you to do that. But the only way that you're going to be able to use our service after that date is to use it with this payment engine. So if you don't want us to collect this payment on your behalf, then you have to stop using the system. You won't get any applications from us. And that felt like quite a brave step. So,
yeah, definitely. That's a line in the sand, if anything, isn't it? Yeah.
No, I think the biggest problem I see in planning actually is the lack of certainty in the process. So pretty much whether you're a house builder or whether you're Joe Blogg's doing an extension to your house, what you want to know is, am I going to get planning permission to do this? How long is it going to take? How much is it going to cost me? Really, you need that transparency. And there's so much complexity in the planning process. It's a lot of it is about balancing different factors against each other to make a decision, to arrive at a decision. It's not black and white at all. And high-res aerial imaging and AI to identify the habitats. So they can even tell you what sort of grass is on a field using imaging that's come from space. Basically,
I know a little bit about this.
Is that actually the risks around AI and some of the bias that's being built into some of the models actually has real opportunity, if we don't get a grip of it, to really reinforce the exclusion of certain models, certain people, certain groups. I was watching a program last night, they were talking about facial recognition and how it doesn't, in its initial form at least, didn't work as well on dark skin, because it had been trained on white men.
Okay.
So there are 5 frogs on a log and one decides to jump off. How many frogs are left on the log?
I'm going to say 4 frogs, but I feel like I'm going to be wrong.
Yeah, there are 5 because deciding isn't the same as doing. So
I love that.
I think my fallback with any kind of change actually, and tech adoption is as fundamental a change as anything, is I always go back to John Kotter, who I'm sure you'll be aware of. Many of the people listening to this podcast will be. If you haven't checked his change model out, it was from, I think, 1980s. It's a long time ago, but it still holds true, really. In that, again, you start with a vision, you start with the urgency, you identify early adopters, and you build momentum from there. It's about how we talk about it in tech now in the same way, when we're talking about development, we talk about MVP and then we talk about iterating. It's the same principle, really. You prove the concept as early as you can, and then you start to deliver that value, and then you build more buy-in from there.